In this video, we are going to solve inequalities, but in particular, we are going to solve inequalities that are expressed in full sentences. And so we're going to have to practice translating these full sentences into inequalities. Let's read the first one. First problem, which says, find the set of all real numbers such that the product of 4 and y minus 3 is no more than 9. Before we get going, here are a few things that could be helpful. When we see plus, add, increase by, sum, and total, or more than, for example, we are probably talking about adding. If we see minus, subtract, decrease by, etc., then we are talking about subtracting. Product, times, multiply, those are multiplying. Divide or quotient, those are dividing. This is not the complete list, but a few things you can look for. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this. Here is my suggestion. Whenever you are given an equation or an inequality that is given as a sentence, first step, carefully translate it. And what I like to do is just start by writing down the sentence again in one line. So I'm going to write down this whole sentence. Find the set of all real numbers such that, and to be honest, all of this part is just telling you to solve for x. And the next part is what's important. So I'm going to do a new line starting with the product. So the product of 4 and y minus 3 is no more than 9. And write that all out in one line so that it's straight across. For example, you wouldn't want to say put no more than 9 underneath what you already wrote. You want everything in one line as opposed to putting it in two lines, for example. The reason why is this helps me at least try to figure out what's going on. Now I start to translate. The product of 4 and y minus 3 is no more than 9. So I'm going to start with the first phrase, which is the product of 4 and y. That is its own thing, right? So remember, product means we multiply. So the product of 4 and y literally means 4 times y. And I have translated that part. Let's go to the next part. Minus 3. Minus 3, that should be fairly simple, means minus 3, but written out as like so. When we express inequalities in English, you have to really pause and think. So be careful with this part. Is no more than. So it can't be more than, which means it has to be either. So it can't be more, right? If something is not more, there are kind of three options always. You can either be more than something, you can be less than or something, or you can be equal to something. So if it's not more, that means it's either less than or equal to. Pause for a second and make sure that makes sense to you. No more than means, well, it could be equal. That wouldn't be more. It could also be less than. That would not be more. And then the last one is just 9. That just comes down like this. That part, I might have made that seem easy. That is the hardest part, is that translating part. I do think going slowly and breaking your sentence down into small phrases will be helpful, and I like to use color coordinated pens and just do one part at a time. Make sure I am going slowly and translating each part of the sentence. Now we can just solve for x. So I'm going to rewrite my equation a little bit more in a more condensed version. And now I know that, okay, I have my variable term on the left, so I'm going to move all the numbers to the right. First, I get rid of that minus 3 by adding 3 to both sides. Bring down that 4y is less than or equal to 9 plus 3 is 12. Next, divide by 4. And remember, when we have an inequality, always pause whenever you divide or multiply, because you have to think to yourself, am I multiplying or dividing by a negative number? In this case, I am dividing by a positive number, so I don't need to change the less than or equal to sign. I can keep it as it is. If I was dividing by a negative number, I would have to change the less than or equal sign to a greater than or equal to sign. So my answer is actually y is less than or equal to 3. Now the instructions say graph each solution on a number line and write it in interval notation. Here's my number line. Here is 3. So it's all the numbers less than or equal to 3. So I go to the left. And since it's less than or equal to, I use a square bracket. For interval notation, again, I'm going to put my negative infinity off to the left. That helps me recognize that I am talking about all the numbers in between negative infinity and 3. And I put a square bracket as well. And that is my final answer. All right, let's do one more, which is number 8. And again, I'm just going to write it. And it says, find the set of all x such that, again, that part I don't even need. That just is telling me solve for x. The part after that is what I actually care about. The sum of twice x and 5 is at least 13. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First, we have this, the sum of, and we have two things that we're going to be adding. Twice x is one of those things. And the second thing is 5. Pause for a second and see if you can figure this one out on your own. So when we do the sum of, what do we do? Remember, sum means that we are going to be adding two things. So we're going to add two things. I know that. The first thing that I'm going to be adding is twice x. Twice means 2 times. So this is going to be 2x. And 5, well, 5 is obviously just 5. Okay. Is at least 13. Now, if it's at least 13, that means it could, let's think of a scenario. Let's say that I am selling a baseball card, and I say to myself, I want to make at least $13 when I sell this baseball card. What I'm really saying is that the smallest number that I would accept if someone was going to offer me some money would be $13, but I would happily take $14, $13.50, $14 or anything bigger than that. So I would accept $13 or anything larger than that. Right? So when I say if the sum of twice x and 5 is at least 13. That means it could be equal to 13 or it could be larger. So I want 2x plus 5 to be greater than or equal to 13. It could be 13 or it could be larger than 13. Again, that part is the difficult part. Make sure you really think that part through when you are deciding which one to use. All right, now again, I'm just going to consolidate this inequality and let's solve. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides here. The 5's cancel out. I'm left with 2x is greater than or equal to 8. I'm going to divide by 2. The 2's cancel out, and I'm left with x is greater than or equal to 8 divided by 2 is 4. Let's express our inequality or our solution set on a number line. So I'm going to start at 4, and it's greater than or equal to, so I go to the right. And since it's greater than or equal to, I use a square bracket going to the right. To express this in interval notation, I like to put my infinity sign on the right-hand side, and I recognize that my solution set is all the numbers in between 4 and positive infinity. And I am done. So I hope that was helpful. There are a lot of different words and phrases that you can use, so it's hard to go over every example. But one thing I want you to really think about is it is helpful for me to kind of write out the sentence in one line and kind of underline things, make a diagram out of that, and do one little part at a time. Do it slowly. And especially think of the expression, if it's an inequality, what it means when we say is no more than, is no less than, is at least, is at most, things like this. Think about it. If you're really confused, feel free to put it in a, do a Google search if you are working on it for homework. But make sure you understand it well enough that when you see it on a test, you will know what to do if you cannot Google it. All right, with that being said, that is the end of the video. Hope this was helpful, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.